Jewel back, and I wanted to talk about the Sun in conjunct to the Midheaven today. What happens when we see this showing up in a birth chart? So the Sun is our ego, our need to be appreciated for what we are, for what we show up as. It's not like Mars, which is our need to be appreciated or loved or applauded for what we do or what we get. It's not the action-oriented part of the ego. This is what wants to be seen and appreciated and identifies with the ego. So it's our identity and the ego associated with that. It's our vitality. It's a lot to do with our creativity and represents the father principle and our experience of early authority, what that was like in our own experiences of fathers and men, male figures in our lives. So the midheaven is our idea of authority, represents authorities in general, outside authorities and outside society, and what we grow up to be. The image and reputation that precedes us is very much the midheaven, and it describes our career because it describes what we're known for, what we do, and how we show up in the world. It's not like the ascendant where they're similar, but it's not exactly the same. But the ascendant is how we behave. The midheaven is how we're known for behaving. So when we have the Sun in conjunct to the midheaven, and it is going to have to be within, 1 or 2 degrees to be considered an inconjunction. The Sun is going to be somewhere down there, typically depending on what house system you use. I prefer equal house because it is the most accurate. It's either going to be the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, or 5th house, depending on what system you're using. So the Sun being down here and the midheaven being up here, and they're in an angle about this far apart, which is awkward relating. If you don't understand what inconjunctions are, they are the same as quincunx. I hate that word because I never get it right. It's much easier to spell. I have another video explaining the nature of this aspect in itself, so you may want to click over there and find that and then come back to this. So we see somebody who is struggling to find a balance between how they show up in the adult world and in the career world and the work that they do and their personal identity and ego needs. So they can behave in ways that are very self-defeating because their egos are very much involved in what is going on at the midheaven. Their egos and their identities are very touchy when it comes to the things of the midheaven, and they definitely are out to prove something, but it is in a way that is not entirely successful because of the nature of what an inconjunction is. So their egos can really rule their behavior, and they can have a reputation for being unmanageable, sometimes wildly uncontrollable. Now, you have to look at aspects to the Sun to really see the potentials that this particular inconjunction holds. Because if we see somebody whose Sun is receiving like squares or oppositions or difficult aspects from Mars or Pluto, even Saturn, particularly Mars or Pluto, we can see somebody that already has a touchy ego or identity, had some things going on in the past that were difficult that really set them up for having now issues at the midheaven. So you have to look at what is the story of the Sun. If somebody has a relatively mild Sun, maybe it's in Pisces and they don't have any difficult aspects going on there. Maybe it's with Jupiter or, otherwise, wildly blessed. It can show up very different from somebody who has their Sun in like a know-it-all sign like Gemini or Aries or Leo. And then their sun is receiving difficult aspects from Mars or Pluto or Saturn. Sometimes, different combinations create, a soup that when you put it on the pot, boils up into something that can be more hot than somebody else's sun. So this is one where, it's just really important to see what state is the sun in before you can really determine how is it going to react up at the midheaven. So, others view them, often as difficult, especially in the workplace, because the sun is so sensitive down here and is so out to prove something up at the midheaven that's very touchy. So the opinions, the judgments, the ideas, how other people see them is very, very important to people with this particular inconjunction. It is very, very difficult for them to stand down if they feel that they have been misaligned or blamed or somebody said something about them. Their ego is very easily stimulated and wants to take the driver's seat. So they can be very combative, and they can be known for that because it's very, very difficult for them to publicly admit failure or weakness or defeat. All authority basically pisses them off. Just the fact that it exists. It doesn't even have to do anything to them because it's a symbol. And so they feel that they have to fight it for their survival because, the 10th house has a lot to do, or the midheaven has a lot to do with our survival and how we go out in the world and get things, how we bring them back to the cave. So these people, their attitudes are very much rooted in that they must take from the top in order to eat or survive at the bottom. So their attitudes are just very much, rooted in that perception. And so when they can recognize that sometimes, we have to play a role in order to get a paycheck. That is the way the world works. Everybody has to perform to some degree in order to make nice enough to get paid. So there's a struggle there with this particular placement where people are like, I just want to show up as I really am. I don't want you to tell me to do what I'm supposed to do. I'm not going to wear your clown suit. In fact, I'm not even going to wear the uniform. I'm going to draw a big middle finger on it and I'm going to wear that to work. How about that? Because you gave me this uniform and you're requiring me to wear it. So it's very much about just understanding that you've got to suck up to some degree. Everybody does. And you have to wear an image from 9 to 5 a lot of the time. You can't go in there and say exactly what you feel and expect to do what you personally want to do. That's just not the way of the world. So there has to be this acceptance that you got to sell out to some degree to be socially accepted. And this is where a lot of their identity problems come from, is that they fight that social expectation. Well, then it creates this image of them that they don't like. So then they feel like they have to fight against that, and that creates more of this image that they don't like. So it's stepping out of that cycle, taking responsibility, because the midheaven is about ultimate responsibility. They got to take responsibility for their attitudes, for the way that they have shown up in the world, and they've got to understand that they are responsible for their image. It's not other people that are responsible for their image. It's not other people saying things about them or insisting things come from them or insisting on certain kinds of behaviors. It's not about others' expectations that are creating the situation. So you have to stop fighting the powers that be. You have to accept that you're gonna have to wear the clown suit sometimes if you want to show up in a job in a way that is not combative. And you have to bend your will and your ego desires sometimes if you want to make nice. So this is one where they need to prove themselves to themselves, not to the outside world. They need to prove that they can manage and control their own self. And that creates the confidence that they're missing, that they're looking for at the midheaven, and that other people are not giving them, and they're like, well, I'm going to demand it. That doesn't really work out so much when it comes to what we're known for. So stepping out of that loop, taking responsibility, recognizing that they need to prove themselves to themselves, because they have a very hard time finding meaningful career. They have a hard time getting a career together or a job together that is something that they want to be doing. And that's a large part of just how humans are made up. We act out in very unconscious ways in order to prove our judgments to ourselves. So that's why they often end up in careers that are unsatisfying, because they're proving to themselves that this or that is true, or that somebody thinks this about them, or this boss is conspiring about them over here, and it's just crap. So basically they're owned by a lot of bull, and they need to admit that. They need to let their ego get out of the driver's seat so they can find that meaningful life that they are really missing. And they're stubbing their own toe, they're getting in their own way. They need to let go of the judgments of others, because really it's the judgments that they put on themselves that's driving this. And we need to prove to ourselves that we can manage our own self. So I know I keep repeating myself, but that is the nature of inconjunctions. You have to say it a lot of different ways in order to have the connection really happen. It's difficult to understand conjunctions because of the nature of what conjunctions are. So I will say something, several different ways in almost all my videos, actually, just because that's the way that I am. But it's really important to kind of approach the explanation of inconjunctions in myriad fashions, because it's just a difficult concept to really concretely understand. So I hope this was helpful to you. I don't want to see any comments, please, about how I ramble on, because that is the nature of inconjunctions. And I will be back super soon with more super cool videos. I do love your suggestions. Please leave me your comments. And if you did enjoy this, please don't be afraid to like the video. You can find me on the internet at truthinAspectAstrology.com. Yes, I do private consultation. You can find me on Facebook at Truth in Aspect Astrology. And I'm on Instagram now too. I'm trying to start up with the Instagram. So find me over there also. And if you're not seeing stuff over there, please bother me, because seriously, the squeaky fan gets the wheel, the oil. The squeaky fan gets the wheel. Like I'm going to run you over. No. That wasn't a Freudian slip. The squeaky fan gets the video. So please leave me your suggestions. I'll be back super soon. Bye-bye.